Okay, so I thought this might be a good time to do one of those videos where you know, people just tell about the biggest mistakes they've made in the job, or things that have cost them the most, for those new people out there, or new people starting, or maybe people it's even been a few years but they're finding that they're messing up a lot and it's starting to get to them a bit, because it does happen. But this is one of those, you know what, everyone makes mistakes. Doesn't necessarily mean you're new. Everyone can do it. So I've got a bit of a story time for our biggest one. We were on a job about 6 or 7 years ago now. It's the biggest job we'd ever done by far. It was a big scale job. It was about an 18-month project, and it was most of the way through at this point as well. We were doing at the time we were supposed to be putting in a new 3-phase RCBO, if I remember rightly, into a big old 3-phase unit, and it was for a big house. So it came to the time we had to shut down the power. So we'd given like a half a day warning already. We'd gone round site, sort of, especially towards the time we were telling everyone power was going off. There was about 10-15 different trades on site at this point, so it was a pretty big deal. But we'd gone round, we were getting the message passed round. Our team had gone round finding everyone we could, telling them the power was going to go off, right up to the point that we did it. We'd set a time, and then we did one last call as well just before we did turn it off, and we got to that point. So finally had all that agreed. There I was, turned the power off, changed the breaker, literally only took 10 minutes, and back on again. Literally within about 10 seconds, someone came shouting and screaming from the garage, where no one had checked. No one knew there was anyone in the garage. Someone was in the garage, and they were laying a resin floor, a patterned resin floor as well. So it was one of those ones that it's poured into a pattern, and then obviously left to set. But typically the exact moment we turned that off was when they were mid-pour. So we plunged them into darkness in the middle of this pour at exactly the wrong 10 minutes, which at that particular point it had set too quickly and messed up the pattern as well. So it's very unfortunately that no one knew they were in there at that particular time apart from them, and it had just slipped the net. But we basically turned the power off on them in the middle of this floor laying process, and it had set, and well, set not completely, but as in set in a way that it had messed up the pattern. So yeah, and £2,000 that cost us, for the sake of turning off a breaker. And yeah, so I've never forgotten that, and by God do I check every time I ever turn power off now, anywhere, even in a small house. I always check, because that was a terrible feeling and an awful lot of money for that as well. But there you go. I'd been in business 7 or 8 years at that point, and yeah, you know, you can still do it. It was a big cock up, and I held my hands up at the time as well. So yeah, don't always feel so bad, because you can still do it. Doesn't matter how long you've been doing it as well. So that's my one. Perhaps if anyone else wants to share, what's your biggest and most costly mistake you've ever made? Enjoy.